All right, so it looks like our participation list has settled down. So we'll go ahead and get started. So what we're going to talk about today is the bare bones Canvas course. It's basically an introduction into Canvas. We're going to run through all of the settings and options that you have in your course. And there is a lot of information to cover in an hour. So if you have questions, we ask that you put those in the Q&A. We do have a moderator who is going to answer those questions the best that we can. And then ask the ones out loud that might be pertinent or a little more difficult. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna jump into my Canvas course, and it's the one I use all the time, so it's quite built out. And you'll notice first off that we have two sets of menus here. So this in the gray bar over here is called the global navigation. And this will never change. So whatever course you're in, or if you're on your dashboard or anything like that, that's what this is gonna look like. So your dashboard right here should give you a tile list. You might also have a streaming view of all the different courses you're in. Once you click on your course, then you'll be able to see the course navigation. Now my course navigation is a lot longer than yours because I've turned on every option that I have so that you can see all the possibilities that we have. We're going to run through each one of these, and I'm going to do it, like I said, fairly quickly. And then if you have questions, put them in the Q&A, and we're going to get moving. So this is your home page, and when you first come in here and your course is brand new, this will all be blank. And up here at the top right here, you'll have a publish and unpublish option. So if your course comes unpublished, which means nobody can see it but you, and that allows you to build your course, build your assignments, mess with the course and everything, and it doesn't notify the students every time. Once you publish a course, when you go in and make like an edit to an assignment or you add a new quiz, it's going to notify the students that they have something new in the course. And then that way they're never left out or left behind. On the right-hand side here, you have a bunch of different options, and we're just going to catch on a few of these things that are really important. One is choose your home page. So if you want to choose your home page, the first thing you'll get is this list here of available options. Now the course activity stream just basically tells the students what's happened recently as opposed to anything that you've built. The course modules page jumps them straight to modules, and we'll get into modules later. Assignment list will jump them straight to the assignment page. And then the syllabus, which is my personal favorite, is the one I've chosen here, and I'll explain that here in just a minute. This choose page as front page option, if you're a little more creative and you want to build a page, an HTML kind of page, and have that be your home page, you can build that and then set that page as your landing spot, as the home page here. But you can also build a little bit into the syllabus as well, which is why I like it. So once you've chosen what you want, I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And this is my syllabus. And on the syllabus page, it allows me to do two things. One, I can click Edit here, and I have my rich content editor. And just so you guys know, the rich content editor, the look of it is going to change here in a couple of days. But all of these functions will still be there. Their icons will look a little different. So you have your normal like bold, italic, underline, right align, left align, that kind of stuff, bullet lists. And then you have more of the advanced features down here. So you can insert a table to help you align things or put things in order. You have the ability to insert media, create hyperlinks, insert pictures. You can do math equations, insert stuff from YouTube. Here's where you're able to record video. So Canvas does have a built-in recorder. So you can click this and allow your browser to access your webcam and your audio. And then you'll be able to record straight into Canvas without needing any extra software. This little chevron here does more extra tools. Now this one icon is one that's going to change. Instead of a little blue chevron like this, it's going to look like a plug. And it's supposed to represent plugins. So here at SMU, we have a few plugins that you can add to any of the places you edit, including the big ones, which will be Panopto, which is our new video management system. The ones from Kaltura will go away soon. We have PlayPosit, which adds interactions on top of videos, and then Films on Demand, which is the service that we have from the library that has all of our videos that we have copyright to or availability of, and you can embed those in here as well. Down here, you can add, see like here I've added a picture, here I've added text, and here I've added a link to my actual syllabus file. Creating a link is pretty easy. You type out the words you want to have, so like embedded file, you highlight that, click the link to the URL, and you can link to an outside URL. Say if you wanted to go to like nasa.gov or Discovery Channel, something like that, you could link that there, or you could link to a file that you have inside Canvas already. So I've highlighted this, and over here on the right-hand side, you have all of this content features. And this is something you will see in every rich content editor throughout Canvas. So whether it's an assignment, a quiz, a discussion, a syllabus, a page, this will all look the same. So I can link here to other places within my course. So if I wanted to send the students straight to an assignment, I could click Assignments, and then it's going to load up all my assignments, and I pick the one I want to send them to. If I was wanting to link to a file like I was talking about, I could click File, and here's all the files that I've uploaded to my course already. If I need to upload a new file, I simply do that here. Once I pick something and click on it, it'll automatically create a link to my new file. And you can do the same thing with images. That's how I uploaded this. These are all the images I have uploaded to Canvas. If I need to upload a new image, I can do that here, or I can search Flickr. Flickr will soon be replaced with a new search engine, but you can still search for free pictures on the internet using that, and you know that they're copyright free. Down here, this course summary button, if this is checked, which is the default, you will see a list of all of the assignments, discussions, quizzes, things that you create that have due dates or may have grades in them. This, I think, is a great thing because it always tells the students what's upcoming and when things are due over here on the right-hand side, so they can never say they didn't know. But if you don't want this view down here, you can uncheck this box here, and when you say update, this will all go away. Okay, I'm going to cancel because I don't want to save any of those changes. Also on the right-hand side over here, you can quickly do new announcement, which is pretty much the same thing as coming over here and clicking on announcements, but it's just a shortcut. And one of the big things is student view. When you click on student view, you will actually create a fake student in your course, and it'll actually show up in the grade book. So if you take quizzes and things like that, you'll actually see the grades that you earned. If you want to get rid of those grades, like say you want to take a quiz, but you didn't allow multiple attempts, you'll need to reset the student view so that you can take it again. Or you can get rid of all the grades, all the activity you've done so that you get a fresh student every time. If you don't want to reset it, all you have to do is leave student view. But the idea behind student view is that you can, when you create your quiz or your assignment or anything like that, you can go look at it as a student and see what it looks like to them. And that's just a quick way to double check and see what they see. All right, so headed down the list on the left-hand side here, home makes sense. We've already chosen our home page, so this is where we land. Announcements. You can quickly create new announcements, and this blue button with the plus sign will be also consistent throughout Canvas. You'll see that with plus assignment or plus quiz or plus discussion. You'll see that throughout. You click on plus announcement up here. You want to give this guy a title. You want to go ahead and type in whatever the announcement is that you want. You can, do your bold and italics. You can make it pretty. You can embed videos. You can embed pictures. You can record yourself. Anything you want, you can do that in here. Again, the rich content editor is very consistent throughout Canvas with all the things you can do. And then down here, if you happen to cross-list your course, which means you've put multiple sections together inside one course shell, you can choose to assign it to an individual section or all sections. You can add an attachment. So if you talk about it in a video that you want them to review the syllabus, for example, you could browse and attach the syllabus file to this announcement. You can allow users to comment, so they'll be able to ask you questions or make comments about your announcement if you want them to. You can enable it as a podcast feed, which we don't do a lot of. If you're feeling interested, you can allow them to like your announcement if you want them to. But one of the biggest features is delay posting. And I think this is great because it allows me to get things off my brain and I don't have to remember to do them at a later date. I can make this announcement whenever I'm ready to do it or I'm feeling creative or it's in my thoughts. And then I can come in here and click on the calendar and say, okay, I want to send out Friday at 5 p.m. Done. And when I click save, the announcement will get stored and then send out at Friday at 5 p.m. If I do not use this option and I click save, the announcement will go out immediately. And this announcement will go out and will give a notification to the students with a certain character limit about the announcement, as well as it will tell them that they have a new announcement inside Canvas and that they need to go check it. Once you've posted announcements, if you allow students to make comments, you'll be able to see this little, kind of looks like a Tylenol pill to me, but it'll tell you how many unread replies you have and how many total replies you have. So once you read a reply, you should have less. So here I've got 3 total replies and I have 1 that I haven't read yet. And you'll see all the announcements that you have for your course. When you roll over your course from term to term, you'll actually keep your announcements if you take all of the content, so you can reuse announcements and just set up new dates and times next time. So moving on to assignments, and this is probably where the majority of you'll spend a lot of time. You'll notice here that I have these different groups, and these are created right here. And these are not to be confused with student groups, like if you set up a student group assignment where 3 or 4 work together on a single assignment. These are assignment groups. And so this is a really good way to weight your grades for the class. So say, for example, that you want your class to be worth, or quizzes to be worth 50% of your total grade, homework is worth 30%, and then 20% you've got miscellaneous like participation and other things you want to put together. So that's what you can see here is that I have 15% of a total, 52% of a total, and all that, so that I can keep up with what percentages I'm weighing each assignment group. And then as you create assignments, you just put them into the appropriate group so that they get added up and weighted out correctly. So somebody asked in the announcement if the podcast option is audio or text. And the podcast option for announcements does come out as text, but will link to a video if you happen to embed it. Again, like I said, not many people use the podcast option, so that's something we haven't done in a good long time. So with assignment groups here, once I've created all these groups, then I need to go ahead and if I want to weight them out, I can hit these little 3 dots here and turn on my weights, and then I'll get a list of all of my different groups, and I can just put in their percentage. The only thing you want to do is make sure that it adds up to 100, or if you want an extra credit category, you could put, if you had like 1% here, it would be 101. So let's create an assignment. So again, the rich content editor looks very familiar. You have all these information here, as well as your links to outside sources, links to files, links to images that you can embed all in this content here. But the idea is you put in your title up here, and you put any kind of directions for the assignment in here. Again, you can embed images, you can embed files, you can embed pictures, you can embed videos, links to outside sources, all that stuff in here, so you can be as dynamic as you want in your instructions. Down here is where we set up all the details for the assignment itself. So, for example, we're going to make this a 100-point assignment. We're going to put this into the regular assignments category. I do want this to be worth points, so I just want to show you the other options here. You can make it worth a percentage, so you could type in 82%. You can do complete, incomplete. With complete, incomplete, though, you do still have to put in a point total. So if this was worth 100 points, they either get a 100 or a 0. It's either right, it's either complete, or it's not. Points is the one that we most commonly use throughout campus. You can set up a letter grade and a GPA scale if that's something you're interested in. However, it does require you to create your own custom scale. So if you want to put a letter grade as an A, Canvas needs to know, well, what does an A equal? Because it still has to calculate a final score at the end based off of numbers. GPA scale is the same thing. If you were to give them, a 4 on a GPA scale, is that 100 or is that a 95? Again, Canvas has to know the number behind it so that it can do the calculations at the end. You can set up non-graded assignments, which will not be included in the gradebook. These are like just participation stuff, or if you're doing a kind of, check and see where the students' heads are at. That's what non-graded things are for. I'm going to keep mine as points so that we can see more options down here. There is an option here to not include this in the final grade. I think this is a great option because you can still give them a grade so that they know, they did about 75 out of 100, so they know that they kind of got a C, C+, but it doesn't include it in the final grade. You just check this box and it won't be part of the calculations in the gradebook. Down here, you'll get your submission types. So no submission would be if you're doing a face-to-face class and this is just not something you're collecting. An online submission is probably the most common submission type that we have. You can do text entry, which will give them the rich content editor box like this with all the same edits and everything, including the HTML editor if you're someone who can do HTML code. And then they can type in this box, they can edit, they can do images and pictures and embed videos, all that good stuff with just the text entry option. You can use a website URL, which will just create a box where they can paste a URL. So if you're having them create and host a website somewhere, instead of having them submit code to you, they could give you the URL for that website. Or if you're having them look up, news articles that are pertinent to a certain topic, you could have them submit a URL for that. Media recordings gives them that recording option button here, which is that guy there, which then pops up the ability to, I'm not going to allow my browser because you'll get confused between the webcam, but if you allow the webcam to access here, you get a little box and you can record yourself directly. Or if you've allowed them to create the video with like their cell phone or something like that, they can upload the media here, either audio or video files, and they would see that same interface when submitting a media recording as a homework assignment. And then the last and most probably common used is file uploads. So if you click that, this will allow the students to do the browse option and search their computer for a file. If you're particular about what you want submitted, you can definitely check this box and you can tell them, I just want docx files or PDFs. And so if it's not that format, the Canvas will not accept it. Now do note that you do not put the periods in here, so it's not .doc, .docx, you don't need the periods, you just need the extensions of the types you want. And it gives you an example right here to remind you of what that should look like. If you're going to restrict the files types though, definitely put that up here in your instructions to let the students know, what type of file you're going to ask them to submit. If it is a Word doc or a PDF, say this is a paper that they're writing, you do have the option of plagiarism review. We do, SMU has sponsored through Turn It In, so we have purchased that. So that's an only option here for plagiarism detection. When you turn on Turn It In, you'll be given the default settings for your plagiarism detection. And unless you're an advanced user, the default settings are pretty much the way to go. The only thing I will give you a caveat about is if this is a rough draft, you may want to change where you store the submissions. So standard paper repository means that not only will this paper get checked for plagiarism, but then that paper will be submitted to the repository for future checks. And so for a final draft, that's perfect. But if you're not gonna, if this is a rough draft, you probably want to choose do not store these papers, because then when you ask for the final draft, it would come back as 100% match because it'd be checking against the rough draft. So just so you know which repository that you have, again, standard repository will check it and submit it, and then do not means it'll check it, but it won't include that paper in its repository. The third option is institutional paper repository, and we really don't use that too much. Certain people have certain reasons, whether it's research or different things like that, that they may only want to submit and then have it stored in SMU only. But as far as like your standard papers being submitted by students, you definitely want to have it checked and submitted to the global repository so that someone at Yale can have their paper checked against it and that kind of thing. You can show the students whether or not what their score was as far as their plagiarism. So you can choose to show that to them immediately and let them know that they got only 20% possible plagiarism. And you have to go in and check that because sometimes it'll pick up even stuff put in quotes. It'll catch that as plagiarism. So you do need to go ahead and check it and make sure that it hasn't just picked up quoted things, or maybe they only put a quote on one end and it didn't catch it, that kind of thing. But some people don't like to show the report to the students, especially if they allow multiple attempts at submitting an assignment, because then a student can submit a paper, see that they got 80% plagiarized, go back and make edits and change a few words, submit it again. Okay, now they're down to 60%, go back, edit it again. So sometimes they don't want to share that report with the students right away. So you can choose to do it after the due date so they can't go back and change their assignments, or you can choose to not show it to them at all. So a question that came in that says, who owns the standard repository? So no one actually owns the papers. It's submitted to a general repository from different universities all over the world that are part of Turnitin. So I guess in a sense it belongs to Turnitin in the fact that they check the papers against it, but they don't own any of the content. They can't replicate it or use it or anything like that. And what are data protection standards? Maybe you can, we'll come back to that question if you could explain a little bit more. We'll keep going with this until I get a further explanation on that one. So I'm going to turn off plagiarism right now so that we get rid of those settings. And so then we have group assignments. So you can put an assignment and then have students put together. If you want to do group assignments, it'll probably take a little longer than the time we have today to go through all the settings that you have to do for that. But basically you would turn this on, and I would highly recommend that you set up the groups before you set up the assignment. And then you would just choose your group, set, and assign it and keep moving. If you need to set up a new group category, you would you would have to click new group category and then set up the groups. Basically in Canvas, you can set up the groups to where students Canvas will automatically put students in groups. So if you say I want 4 students in a group, Canvas will just go ping, 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 ping and put 4 people randomly in a group. Or you can set it up manually to where you put the people in the groups, or you can set up auto assign or auto pick, which allows students to create their own groups and sign themselves up for different groups. So there's a multitude of ways to do that, and we can get in that more in a different session or talking with the help desk if you want to about that. Peer reviews is exactly what you think it is. You set this up. You can, as the instructor, manually assign peer reviews, meaning you choose what students review what students, or you can automatically, which is what I highly recommend. It's just random. So you would come in here and say, okay, well, a peer reviewer needs to review 2 other students, and they need to do it by Friday at 5 p.m. But do note that your peer review must come after the due date of the assignment, because then everybody needs to have their papers in so that they can be auto-assigned and have time to do their peer reviews. Lastly, you can make peer reviews anonymous so that one student doesn't see that the other student is the one that ripped their paper apart. It'll just say peer reviewer 1, 2, 3, that kind of thing, as opposed to Steve knowing that Susan is the one that tore their paper up. All right. So anonymous grading, this is just for you. This is an option that quote unquote removes grading bias, so that when you go into the grade book, instead of seeing students' names, you will just see student 1, student 2, student 3, that kind of thing. And you can grade them without knowing whose paper belongs to who. That sort of works in the sense that the grade book doesn't tell you what their name is, but a lot of students will put their name at the top of the paper or at the bottom of the paper. So you kind of end up seeing their name sometimes too. So again, that's up to you. It's just an option. If you have multiple teachers in your class, so you're team teaching, or maybe you have a handful of TAs because you have a large class, you can check this option here to make the annotations that you will do anonymous as well. So I'll show you what an annotation is here in a minute. But basically when you submit a paper, you can kind of draw all over it, write on it, those kind of things. If you want to make those anonymous so that the student doesn't know which one of the instructors made the comments, you can do that here as well. And then the last thing is the assign to box. And by default, it assigns the assignment to everyone in the class. You would come in here and choose the due date. So this is going to be due by Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. Because remember, if you have your plagiarism, if you have peer review, you want to make sure that whatever your peer review date is, it is after the 13th at 11:59. The available from date is when the students can get into this assignment. Now, if the assignment's published, which means the students can see it, right? If it's unpublished, then that's kind of like a draft mode. So you'd still be working behind the scenes on it, and when you're ready, you would publish it, right? So even if it's published, the available from date will keep them from getting into the assignment until you want them to. Now, some people like to, only give them a few days to do an assignment so they can set it from Monday to Friday. So that's what your available and your until date will do for you. They can't get in until, so we set this to be due on the 13th, so they can't get into it until Friday the 8th, and it's due on the 13th. but I can choose any date I want on the until date. Now I can choose the exact same time. So I can simply copy and paste this here so that the dates match. And that means it is due when it is due, and I will not take late assignments. If you want to allow late assignments, or if you want to give a bit of a grace period on submissions, because you know students wait to the last minute and then they'll call you and say, well, I was trying to submit and it just wouldn't take and it was going to last forever. So you could set this a little later. So I could go, okay, the 14th at 12:05 a.m. So that gives them like a 5 or 6 minute grace period. Or you could be one of those instructors who will take it over the weekend and say, okay, well, I'll accept it until May 17th. And then if a student submits it on May 14th, in your grade book, you'll get a little tag on there that lets you know that assignment was submitted late, because you will have the option to deduct points for late assignments automatically. But I do want to make a note here about the until date. That is what rules everything. So the until date here will shut down the assignment when the until date is over. The same thing when you go to quizzes. If a student's taking a quiz, the until date will auto submit the quiz whenever that until date hits. So even if you gave them an hour to take the quiz, but the until date and time is up, it will auto submit even if they have 10 minutes left on their timer. So just remember that this until date is the end all for when something is due or turned in. So down here we have this add button. So you'll notice that this is assigned to everyone. Well, let's say, for example, you have a student athlete. Let's assume we're doing face-to-face classes, right? So you have a student athlete who's out on Friday for a game. So you're going to give them a 1-day extension. So instead of me doing on that one student, I can click add, and then I can come down here and find that one student. And then I can, instead of being due on May 13th at 11:59, I could change that to the 14th at 11:59. And don't forget to extend. You may want to extend the until date. You may not. That's up to you. So I could put that in there, and it's still available starting May 8th. So what this does is this allows me to extend a due date, a separate due date and time for one particular student. And you notice this one turned into everyone else. So everybody else is still due on the 13th, but this one student is due a little day later. Now you may have DAS students who need a little extra time. This is another way you could give DAS students a little extra time and give them a separate due date. One other thing that I'd like to point out about this assign box is that say you've combined multiple sections. So say you've got your Monday and Wednesday section and you have your Tuesday, Thursday section, and you've put those into one course shell. Well, you can give them separate due dates by getting rid of everyone and saying, okay, well, this section is due on Wednesday, and then I click add and say this section, and then I put in the 14th instead of the 13th so that they get an extra day. So Monday, Wednesday is due on Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday is due on Thursday. So that's how you can separate sections as well. And you can keep going. So even though I've got my sections on different days, I could still pick out one student and give them a separate due date if they had something happen or they're at a sports game or something, and you've allowed them to have a separate time. So this is a quite powerful little thing. So you don't have to create duplicate assignments just for that one extra student, or 2 assignments, one for one section, one for the other. You can just use this assign to box to give them different dates. So lastly, down here at the bottom, you've got save and publish. And this means that you have done all the settings that you want to do, and now you're ready to publish and put it out there. Now, again, the students can't get in until May 8th, right? Or if you just click save, it will not be published, which means students will not have access to it. You're not ready for them to. So that's what that means. All right, so I'm going to hit cancel to show you what published and unpublished looks like. So here in my assignment list, in one of my groups here, all these green ones here, see all these, they're all kind of got a green tinge to them here, and then they've all got these green check marks here. Those are all published assignments. When something is not published, you'll have this little circle with a line through it, which means it's not published, and the icon will be grayed out. When you roll over it, it'll say, do you want to publish this? And so if you click it, it'll be published, it'll turn green, and students will be able to see it in their course. Now, if you've set available dates, they'll be able to see it, but they won't be able to get into it until that date comes up. All right, so I'll pause for just a second because that was a lot of information. We'll see if there's any questions.
We do have one question. You talked briefly on it, but just to further discuss the assigning a letter grade, is there a way to not have a number associated with it, no calculations based on it, just the text displayed? Maybe if you chose to not have it count as a grade?
Right, so yeah, you would have to combine those two options. So if I turned my points here into a letter grade, I would have to assign a grading scheme. So remember, I have to create a scheme. You still have to do that, but as long as you check this box that says do not calculate it towards the final grade, you can make up any scheme you want, 0 through 5. It's not going to hurt their grade, and it will show as an A in their grade book as opposed to any kind of numerical score. Okay, so we saw what published and unpublished looks like. So what I've done here is I'm going to pick an assignment so that we can quickly look at one. So I'm going to click on this one. And here's where you can click edit, and that'll get you back into the assignment to choose all of those options that we just went through. Under these three dots, you'll notice send to and copy to. Send to option allows you to share this assignment with a colleague. So say if I wanted to send this to Faye, I could click send to and then start typing Faye's name, and it'll pull up her email address here in Canvas, and it will send her a copy of this assignment to her. And what that looks like on her end is up here where her picture is, she would have a little numeric icon pop up that says, like, it'll have like a number 1 that lets her know that she's got one thing waiting on her. And when she clicks on that, she would come down here to shared content, and any kind of shared content would show up here, and she could choose to import it into her own course or just take a look at it and see, maybe get an idea from it, that kind of thing. So that's a quick way to be able to share assignments, quizzes, discussions between you and colleagues. Now the other one, copy to, would allow you to copy this assignment from one course to another. So let's say again that you have a Monday, Wednesday section and a Tuesday, Thursday, but you've decided not to put them in the same shell. You could create the assignment in the Monday, Wednesday class and then just copy it over to your Tuesday, Thursday class and change the dates. So that's that option there. Down here at the bottom is where you have the ability to put in a rubric. Now, for those of you who have a UC class and you have outcomes, this rubric thing will become very important to you, but that's a whole other topic. If you want to set up a rubric for grading purposes, you can click plus rubric here. You want to give it some kind of title, something that makes sense to you, so you could find it next semester if you wanted to use it again. And then you have your grading criteria here. So these criteria are just for grades. So I can edit the criteria and I can call it whatever I want. And let's purposely just do punctuation, whatever. And you have your scale here. Now you can build out your scale entirely by hitting the plus in between. So I've got a 5 and a 0, so I can hit the plus, and then that automatically gives me a 3 option. And if I want to go between 5 and 3, I do that, it gives me a 4 option. And you can keep going and going until you get your entire scale. But you can see how this would be a little time consuming, especially if each one of your line criteria are worth like 25 points. So you don't have to do it by detail, but do know that if you do spend the time to create this out, you can just copy it down. So let's say I want to add another criteria. I can choose a new one, which is completely blank, or I can duplicate my previous one. So if I choose duplicate, now I have the same scale and I don't have to do it again. So you only have to do it once. And when you're done and you create this rubric, because you've given it a unique title, you could use that in any of your other courses. And you don't have to create the rubric over again if you're going to do it in, say, a separate section on that Tuesday, Thursday, for example. But let's say you have 25 points and you don't want to do this whole, put them all in there. You could cheat and choose range, and you've got basically 25 to 0. Now, you wouldn't want to do 25 to 0 because that's not very informative to a student. But let's say you wanted to do 20 to 25. So if I choose 20 to 15, put in some kind of title. So now I've got more manageable ranges. So you could just type in a score. If you put that whole, if you have just one answer per box, then you could do that, or you could put in this range here, and it still gives the students some kind of feedback. So you could tell them full marks, and you could do good job, you know, you really blah, 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 so that they have some kind of feedback about why they earned a 22, for example. And again, the same thing, you can click criteria and duplicate it so that you don't have to recreate this all over again. Now there's a lot of options down here on what to do, but simply for a grading rubric, you just need to tell it, I'm going to use this for grading. When you update the rubric, or say create rubric, if your points are different, it's going to give you a warning. Notice up here, I've told Canvas that this assignment is worth 10.7 points, but here in my rubric, I've told it it's worth 50 points. So you'll want to change that, and you can come in here and click the pencil icon and change your points so that they match. Up here, you notice when I click changed, it changed my points to match my rubric. And if you don't want to use the rubric, you can always hit the trash icon and get rid of it. All right, so once students have submitted homework to you, you'll get these options over here on the right-hand side, including Speedgrader, which is where we'll do most of our grading. You can download submissions, so it would download them all at once, and you would get a zip file of all of the homework. So like, let's say that you had them write a paper, you had 30 students in the class, you get a zip file full of hopefully 30 papers. Re-upload submissions is if you're one of those people who likes to do like work in Word and do the, manage the changes and you type all over them and that kind of thing. You could do that in Word as long as you don't change the title of the document. When you re-upload it, Canvas will take it. But I highly recommend using Speedgrader. So Speedgrader here allows you to come in and see the student submission. You'll see the student's name up here at the top. You can click the down arrow and look at your different students. You can cycle through the students by hitting the arrows, and you just keep cycling through. If they have a paper assignment, you can do all these annotations. You can draw, you can put boxes, you can do highlights, you can put little markers, you can free write text, and all those options are up here at the top. So there's your box, there's your paint or your free write. You can strike through text, there's the text, the highlight, and the little marker. All of those annotations will show up here, and those will be available for students to review when you give them a grade and give them their homework back. They could see that. Right here is where you'd put the grade. If you had a rubric, there'd be a giant button right here that says use rubric or view rubric, and then you can type in the scores into the rubric. With a rubric though, please note that you need to click save when you're updating the rubric. This submit button down here is only for comments. You can type in comments like this. You can attach documents. You can even record yourself so you can have a video feedback as opposed to typing it all out. You have the ability to download submission comments to keep for your records if maybe there's a grade dispute or it's just something you want to keep for later. As well as up here in the upper left, you can download the annotated PDF, which means all of the stuff that you've put in here, you get a copy of that with all of the annotations. If the student has submitted multiple times, meaning they submitted it on Monday and then they thought on Tuesday, oh, I forgot to do the conclusion, and then they submitted again on Tuesday, as long as it's not past that until date, you click this down box here and you'll be able to see all the different submissions you have there. Okay, so that's the basics behind Speedgrader. Attendance tool allows you to mark students as present, absent, or not there that day. And if you want to talk about attendance tool, that's something we can talk about later as well, because it is a kind of a separate little monster. But just to note, whenever you click attendance and you do it the first time, it will create an assignment in your assignments list out of 100 points. And the more you mark them, the grade changes. So if they're here 3 out of 4 times, then they've got a 75% as a grade. We have integrated box into Canvas, and it's just your SMU box. Whenever you log in for the first time, you'll have to tell it you're from SMU, and you'll do the SSL login. And then you'll be able to see your box here. It's just a way to kind of browse your own box folders because you can link files directly from Box into the rich content editor using that little blue chevron. Canvas does have a chat feature. The chat feature just basically tells you who's online in the class, and you can just type down here and use little emojis and that kind of thing. So it's just a basic chat function. Class Notebook is Microsoft OneNote. So if you know how to use OneNote and you're very fond of that, you can use it inside Canvas. Canvas does have conferences. It is very much like using Zoom. You can have breakout rooms. You can share your screen. You can take control of someone else's screen if they let you. The idea is that you create the plus conference button. You just set up a date and time, and you can put it in here. You can even record it, but it only lasts for 14 days. After 14 days, the recording is automatically deleted. You'll still see the conference as a record here that you had one, but the recording will be gone, and you cannot download the recording. So conferences are just a quick way to be able to do, let's say, like a quiz review or a homework review, that kind of thing, without having to use Zoom if you want to. It does invite the students from the class to the conference, and you can hold that in here. Discussions. So you have 3 areas in a discussion area. You have pen discussions, which basically just means a discussion that you've pinned at the top of the screen, so it's always at the top. This is used mostly for like Q&As. So some instructors will create a Q&A discussion area where students can talk amongst themselves, ask questions, and answer each other, and they pin it to the top so that it's always at the top for students to easily find. Regular discussions down here is just where you have discussions that are coming up or discussions that are currently ongoing. And you'll notice the same familiar, like 0 replies or 1 reply and you've read them all, that kind of thing. You'll notice this little bookmark icon. And what the bookmark icon is if it's green, that means you're subscribed, which means if there's a new post, you'll get a notification. If you want to unsubscribe to one, let's say if you create that Q&A discussion that goes all semester long, and you really want the students to talk amongst themselves and maybe the TA to answer the questions, you can unsubscribe so that you won't get notifications every time someone posts a reply in there. Throughout Canvas, you'll see these dots here, and you can quickly drag these around and just reorder things. So for example, if I want to drag one from one section to the other, this will automatically close the discussion if I move it down here for comments. So now it's closed and no one can make any more comments for this. To create a new discussion, you click the plus discussion board, again, very familiar. And the settings are very much the same as assignments, which is why we spent so much time in assignments. And we're kind of blazing through the rest of this stuff. The only other thing here is allow threaded replies. So you get that kind of students replying to each other. You may ask them, though, that they need to post their own thoughts before seeing everybody else's reply. So you'll want to check that option there, that they must post before they can see anybody else's. If you want to grade a discussion, you pick that option there, and you have the same, points, letter grade, GPA, all that kind of stuff, options you had before that you saw in the assignments. Okay. Files. This is where you have all your files for just this course. And so you can upload files or create folders right here inside Canvas. Canvas is not really meant to be a file repository. So if you have large files like videos or audio clips, even huge PowerPoints and PDFs, you probably want to put those in Box and then just link the file using the Box, that little blue chevron inside the rich content editor, link to that file in Box because we have a limited space inside each Canvas course. Library Help is one of our integrations, and this is done and maintained by the library. So each subject area has its own librarian, and so it actually reads what subject the student is in. So if a student clicked on Library Help in an English class, they would get repositories and a librarian that's specific to English. If they're in accounting class in Cox, they would get repositories and the librarian specific to the School of Business. Lockdown browser, we'll talk about that here in a minute with quizzes. And then modules is a place where you can organize your entire course. Think of this as like a container. So inside each one of these modules, you would put things like assignments, quizzes, and discussions that you've created. So you would just choose assignment, Then you would choose that assignment and add it, and it would add it here to your assignment. And it just allows you a way to organize your course for the students. And a lot of people will put titles in here like week 1, week 2, week 3, and it just allows the students to go through their course in a more unilateral sense for each term. And it allows you to create a way that just makes sense to students, where you put all of their homework and reading assignments in week 1 in one spot so they can see. Now, I know that we blew through a lot of this really fast because we only had 45 to 50 minutes to get this stuff done. If you have more questions, I definitely recommend you reach out to your ATSDs in each one of your colleges for help, and ultimately the help desk can help as well. So I want to thank everybody for coming today, and if you have more questions, let us know.